Welcome to Ringsiders Wrestling, joined once again by the promoter of Warrior Wrestling. We had a great chat with Steve a couple of weeks ago. We've got to find out about Warrior Wrestling and Steve himself. Thank you for joining us again, Steve.
Thank you for having me. It's a thrill to be able to connect with you across the various time zones and share our love of wrestling.
Absolutely. Last time we spoke, it was great finding out about Warrior Wrestling, a promotion that we've heard a lot about, especially in the UK. You find out what's going on in the States, you find out about GCW, AEW. Warrior Wrestling was one of those that came up. And we were like, we need to get them on the show. We need to find out a bit more about what's going on. And I think we spoke to you just after Friday Night Lights.
Mm-hmm.
And that got a lot of buzz. It was streamed on Fight TV. And apparently, like you said, it did really well. And that was good to hear. So what I want to know is what's in the future for Warrior Wrestling, and especially this month, you've got a very busy month with the Stadium Series coming up. And I was saying to you pre-record, it's one of the strongest cards I've seen, and it's not just one card. Is it three separate nights?
3 nights, 3 Saturdays in a row.
And just some of the talent off the top of my head, you've got Alex Shelley, TJP, Brian Cage, Elena Black, I believe, Dan the Dad. I mean, it's just stacked from top to bottom. And I just want to know, what's the idea behind Stadium Series for people who might not be familiar with it? What can they expect?
Sure. Well, great question. So we basically have a penchant for, if something works, try something even bigger. And we did Friday Night Lights about a month ago, actually 1 month ago today, and it went very, very well. And Friday Night Lights is a play on words off the tradition in the States of Friday night high school football.
Right.
So NFL football is played on Sundays, college football is played on Saturdays, high school football is played on Friday nights under the lights of a stadium. And so we were moving our shows. We were doing the first show of the COVID era, and we were doing it outside in the high school football stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And so we called it Friday Night Lights, and it went incredibly well. We had roughly 500 people attend. It was socially distanced. The photos of it went a little bit viral on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
We took a few drone shots of everyone spread out across the football field and in the bleachers.
Cool. So cool.
Yeah. It worked really, really well from a safety perspective. The show was great. The talent had a great time. And so literally a couple of days later after that show, our wheels started turning with our team internally. All right, how do we do it again, but do it bigger? And honestly, just for precaution, we don't think we're going to be able to run indoors at all this late fall through winter through early spring, just because of COVID restrictions and safety. And so we said to ourselves, all right, we want to do another outside show. We don't think we're running it all in the winter. Let's run 3 more times outside. And let's do it back to back to back while the weather is good in Chicago. And then we'll be done. We'll pack it up and we'll call it a season. And we'll go into hibernation until April or May. And so that's what we're going to do. We decided, number 1, we've got to do it bigger. And number 2, with an eye to the horizon, we knew we were not going to be able to run come late October, November through the spring. So with those 2 things combined, we said, let's do it big. Let's do 3 shows in a row. And here we are.
I mean, it's like I said, you wanted to do it bigger, but you haven't just done it bigger. You're doing a whole month's worth of wrestling shows just about. And some people would say it's ambitious, but I have no doubt it's going to be incredible. Like I said, some of the talent on your shows, you've got the biggest names in independent wrestling for a solid month over 3 separate nights. And was that part of the thought process? Let's just bring in all the biggest names we can and make a lasting impression. If you're going into hibernation until April, May, you want people to remember Warrior Wrestling, and what better way to do it than bring in all the big names for a solid month of wrestling?
Exactly. And not only bring them all in, but spread them out so that each show is different. So for example, a mainstay of Warrior Wrestling is Lance Archer, and Lance is only wrestling on September the 26th. He's only on one of those shows. Mm-hmm. Brian Cage is a mainstay. He's on 2 shows. Brian Pillman is going to be on 2. Sam Adonis is only on 1. Alex Shelley is on a few. The Rascals are on a few. So that way, each of those shows is completely different. So we didn't think people would come back week after week after week if it was the same exact talent, the same exact setup. So we tried to make each show unique from the others.
Yeah, I think that's great. The fact that you're not just putting all the talent on one show, for example, and expecting people to come back. You're like spacing it across those three separate shows. If you go just for one night, you're going to see some big names, some great wrestling, and if you go for all of them, even better. And I do believe there's a. Did you say there's a package where you can
Yes.
you can see all of the shows?
Yeah, we're calling it the Stadium Series Pass, and it sounds expensive. It's $300, but for your $300, you get a field seat to all three shows, a VIP Fan Fest ticket to all three shows, so you get to meet every wrestler, get an autograph from every wrestler, get a picture from every wrestler, and you get the Warrior Wrestling signature mask that we debuted at Friday Night Lights, and you get 4 posters, one for each show and a special bonus one, and you get free parking, and you get to bring 2 more kids for free with you. And so that was
really
the thought
expensive, to be honest. That's a bargain. When you
yeah,
think
you're getting
about,
a month of entertainment.
When I think about it, like $300, you say that's about £250 in England, and
Mhm.
I've paid much more than that for one night of wrestling before.
Yep.
And you get. I'm not just trying to sound like a shill, but that is actually a really good offer. Like if I lived in Chicago, I would go, and it's quite gutting for us that like we can't just fly over at the moment to come to this. And I mean, if you do live in the Chicago area, probably try and get to one of those nights, because I, just on one of the nights alone, there's Alex Shelley, who's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, and I'm so happy he's come back and he's like just Impact Tag Team Champion with Motor City Machine Guns. That's huge for me. When he came back to Slammiversary, 15-year-old me was going crazy. And
Yes.
love the Motor City Machine Guns. It must be cool for you bringing in Alex Shelley, for example, like somebody who's been a staple in independent wrestling for as long as I can remember, and bringing in a name like that.
Alex Shelley is one of the handful of people who I think their style and their approach to the business is influential in ways far bigger than he can comprehend for the entire generation that's wrestling now. There are no Rascals without Alex Shelley and the Motor City Machine Guns. There is no Will Ospreay or Zack Sabre without the mat wrestling and the flying wrestling of Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin. I think he was very much a pioneer and a blueprint for everyone who's on the independent scene and who has a very modern style. And when he returned to wrestling in 2019, we actually had his 3rd match back. He came back from wrestling and he did 2 Ring of Honor matches and then came to us and faced Austin Aries. And it was the best match of an otherwise very stacked card. And not only is he this incredible performer that's influenced a whole generation, but he is a great human being that cares very deeply about working with up-and-coming wrestlers and putting on great matches. So as far as just people to have backstage as part of the whole contraption of the show, it's a blessing to have him on board.
Oh, absolutely. He's one of those guys who, even 10, 15 years ago, he was wrestling a style like you'd see in 2020. He was always ahead of his time. And now the times have caught up. He's not even like, sometimes you look back at what was incredible like 15 years ago and you think, oh, I mean, it's not bad. It's just, it's changed. But he's managed to adapt and keep up with the talent nowadays. And we were speaking to Isaiah Velasquez a couple of weeks ago, and he was marking out at the opportunity to like be on the same shows as Alex Shelley. And I just think he's been, I don't want to use the word underrated, because I don't want it to seem like he's underappreciated, because he is. The fans love Alex Shelley. But I always feel like he's a guy who you could have put a world championship on in any promotion. He could have signed with WWE, and I'd see him as being like the next Chris Jericho, for example. He's been such a good all-around talent. And he, like you said, he can do the high flying, the technical, the character work. He looks great. He's a tag team wrestler. It's just always baffled me how we've never really seen Alex Shelley the world champion. And I think as a fan, I'd like to see Alex Shelley as the Warrior Wrestling champion.
I will tell you, it has been discussed. That is how highly we think of him backstage, just as a performer and as a person. And I agree. You know, I've had many conversations with him in the last year or so since he started working with us. And in a 2 or 3 month period, he worked NXT with Kushida. He worked Ring of Honor, The Final Battle. and he returned to Impact to support Saban. Then later on, they came back and reformed the Guns and won the tag titles. So in a very small time, he's been everywhere. And he is adamant that he is not signing an exclusive contract anywhere because he wants to work with everyone everywhere. And so if a company can nail him down to be exclusive or at least be a little bit long-term, if I'm sitting in any of those meetings in Ring of Honor or Impact or WWE or AEW, I'm pushing for Alex Shelley to be a champion. And I can tell you backstage at Warrior Wrestling, that's something that we talk about.
That's so cool. I mean, I'll definitely be pushing for that one as a fan. Like I'll be watching closely. And when it comes to Stadium Series, I just think the concept is really cool that you're doing it over a month, but it's like a week apart for each show. So you, like you said, it's a full month of wrestling where you've got something to look forward to every week. I used to do the Super Strong Style tournament with Progress, and that was cool.
Yes.
But it was all over 3 days. It's in a row, and at the end of it, you were so tired. Like you really wanted to make noise for all of these amazing matches that were happening, but you were bent out from the last 2 days. So at least with this, you get a bit of space in between. Is this something we'll see annually? Like, is this
possibly? So we were definitely going to do outdoor shows annually. After Friday Night Lights, we had talent and fans and some of our team all mention that evening, this is better than indoors. And there's definitely drawbacks of outdoors. The sound isn't as loud. You don't feel the heat of the crowd as much. And we're actually going to try to mitigate that in these coming shows for the Stadium Series, because we're going to pass out cowbells and horns and noisemakers and try to get the crowd going a little bit more. But outside of that one caveat, I think outdoors under the stars on a summer night is just really special. So whether it'll be a single one-off show or whether it will be a series, we will be outdoors again. It will become our summer tradition.
That's really good to know. I think it's just looking at those pictures that went viral. It was such a cool image, like with the drone shots showing the stadium socially distanced. I mean, that's another thing. It might not always be the case that it's socially distanced. Like, can you imagine when everybody can be a little bit closer? Like, I imagine the noise will be, the atmosphere will be a bit more normal, like an indoor show when people can be a bit closer. But even if you do have to social distance next time you do it, it's just such a cool visual to do. And I think it's great that you're considering doing it as an annual thing. Even if it's Friday Night Lights, which becomes your big outdoor show for the summer, that would be cool to see. And I can speak for myself and Jamie, who again wanted to be here tonight, unfortunately can't be. He's quite gutted that he's missed the last 2 times we've spoken. But we really want to go back to Chicago in around September time, either this year or next year. And if you're doing Friday Night Lights around that time, we'll definitely be there.
Wonderful. And yeah, again, it's going to become a tradition, whether socially distanced or not, like you said. The neat thing is that, if we ever had a show that was going to be such a draw and be so big, we can put 4,000 or 5,000 people in that stadium post-COVID. So we could do it. Essentially, it's like a WrestleMania show on a football field with bleachers all around. It's not quite an NFL stadium, but we can put a lot of people in there. So when the time comes, if we ever have that big of a draw or that big of an event, we can accommodate it.
That would be amazing, wouldn't it? Like you said, it'd be a WrestleMania style show. Friday Night Lights could become your big show, the one that people travel to see. And if you filled that arena, can you imagine the drone shots for that?
Oh my gosh,
incredible, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, for someone like myself in the UK and your international viewers, your international fans, is there any way that we can see this? Because I really want to see the Stadium Series. Is it going to be available afterwards, or is there a way to stream it when it's live?
We have not pushed it out too much yet, but it will be available on Fight TV. All 3 shows will be available live on Fight TV, and then a few weeks afterwards on the High Spots Network.
Perfect. Because I do check the Fight schedule quite often because we work quite closely with them, and we do get chance to work with some of these shows to promote them and do giveaways and stuff. So I'm always checking to make sure there's what's coming up. So we can expect to see in the coming weeks the Stadium Series on Fight TV.
That's correct. We should. They've begun mentioning it, I think, late last night on Twitter, and there will be a big push this week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, ahead of the first show, which is this coming Saturday.
Perfect. And like you said, you had a really good, some really good feedback from Fight TV last time. You had people watching from all over the world.
Yeah, it really blew us away. We had Europe, we had Asia, we had Australia, and there are wrestling fans everywhere. And that's, I think, with the technology that is now available, the message I would like people to hear, especially as you and I talked about last time we spoke, the UK is a hotbed for small independent federations. And if anyone's watching this and you're thinking about, could we set something up? Could we begin to do our own shows or share our own shows? The reality is yes, you can, because there's so many wrestling fans around the globe right now.
Yeah, that's it. And I've always loved that about going to WrestleMania. For example, the last few times we've been, it's always been a melting pot of international fans. Like, you get people from all over the world, and you have one thing in common, and that's your love of professional wrestling. And it's one of those art forms which just resonates. There's no language barrier with wrestling. You can just watch wrestling, even if you don't understand the commentary or anything. You can just be a fan of it still.
Yes. And I need to pause for a quick second. I need to plug my computer in, so I'm going to jump off screen. I'll be right back. I just got the low battery warning. But yes, it's one of those things, like, I liken it often to Cirque du Soleil, where it is a physical form of storytelling that is, like you said, universal. There is no language barrier for wrestling, and you can get into the story no matter who you are, no matter where you are.
Yeah, that's it. And I can watch New Japan, for example, and I watch it with the Japanese commentary. I don't understand the commentary, but the story being told in the ring doesn't need a language. Wrestling's its own language. You can watch wrestling from wherever you are in the world and understand it, the story that's being told. And I think it's one of the only mediums of entertainment which you can do that with.
Again, I would only compare it to something like a Cirque du Soleil as a performance, or many sports you can kind of do that with around the world. But I agree. I used to watch New Japan before they had regular English commentary. And again, you can turn on the Japanese commentary and just feel the emotion in their voices. I don't know what they're saying, but I know that they're providing a soundtrack for the action that I'm watching.
Yeah, because when you were to turn the Japanese commentary off, it wouldn't feel right, would it?
No.
I don't really like, unless it's a live show and I'm there live, I can deal without the commentary, obviously. But when you're watching on TV with no commentary, it seems a bit awkward at times, because you're not getting that emotion from the announce team. But even if you're watching it and you don't understand it, you still, like you said, you feel the emotion, and it adds to it, doesn't it? How important do you think commentary is for wrestling in that sense? I've always thought JR, for example, is one of the greatest commentators of all time. I think you'll struggle to find people who don't like JR's commentary. And how much do you think it adds to a show in that sense? Is it something essential?
That's a great question. I think, and I've heard wrestlers use this analogy as well, it's the lyrics to accompany the music. The action is the music, and the commentary is the lyrics. And I really feel like, just like different lyrics better match different styles of music, I think different announcers match the style of action that's happening on your screen very differently. So like Jim Ross is perfect in AEW for Cody Rhodes matches, because Cody wrestles an old Mid-South Jim Crockett WCW style, where it's about the guts and the determination, and can you believe this kid is going to keep fighting? Whereas I think Excalibur is perfect for Young Bucks matches, because Excalibur actually learned his commentary. He was a big hockey fan, and he calls a wrestling match like a hockey game. And a Young Bucks match is much closer to a hockey game than it is to a boxing match. But a Cody match is closer to a boxing match than it is to a hockey game. So I think it's the right announcer matching the right style of match. And when you have that, I think it's magic.
I've never thought about it like that, where you have a commentator who calls a certain style of match. And I guess maybe that's why I no, this is no knock on WWE's commentary team. I think they all do a fantastic job. Like Michael Cole, for example, is a great commentator, but I think he is restrained by what he can and cannot do. I think if you saw Michael Cole in AEW, for example, he could be one of the greatest commentators there is. But yeah, I think that's a great analogy, saying it's like the lyrics to a song and having different commentators for each style of match. And you're right, the Young Bucks matches are closer to a hockey fight. And Cody Rhodes matches are those old Jim Crockett style matches too. And how did you decide who was commentating the style of Warrior Wrestling?
Great question. So we have normally, with the exception of Friday Night Lights, because we had some technical issues, normally our play-by-play person is Rich Bocchini, who was Rich Brennan in WWE, and our color person is Nick Hausman, who works for WrestlingInc.com. And Rich Bocchini, we loved from NXT. He called Sami Zayn's title win in NXT. He called a lot of that 2014, 2015 NXT run where it was really getting its legs. And then he came up and he did about a year on SmackDown. And so when we set out to do our very first show in May of 2018, we thought, well, we can use somebody local, we can plug somebody in, but we really wanted to establish, because we believed that commentary mattered, we wanted to establish the right soundtrack for our show.
Yeah.
And so we were able to find Rich through a couple of mutual people that connected us, and he agreed to come do our show, and he has been phenomenal ever since. And Rich actually calls hockey on the side. He calls some amateur hockey, but he also has done the WWE style. So what's really great about him is that he's versatile, and he knows whatever type of match is in front of them, he adjusts his style to call the type of match he's seeing. And Nick Hausman, who's his counterpart on color commentary, Nick is very, very well-versed and knowledgeable about wrestling. So Rich calls the action, and Rich comes in and adds those other things to think about. Nick comes in. And so I think it's a really great combo. And we had Val Capone join us for commentary on Friday Night Lights, and she's been a long time commentator, ring announcer, General Jill of all trades on the Chicago indie scene. So Val's knowledge is incredible as well. So we're really blessed to have great people. And I think what's made our team work so well is that Rich is very versatile. Those different styles we just talked about, Rich can shift between the different ones.
That's so cool. I mean, like you said, it's good to have people who have the knowledge, especially for the local shows. Val Capone, for example, you bring in a lot of Chicago talent. Isaiah Velasquez, I believe, is Chicago-based, and you've got other Chicago-based talent as well. And it's always good to have that person who knows about the local talent. You've got the guy who's done the WWE style, and it's a great melting pot, really. Like, you're ready for any kind of match that comes along. You've got such a diverse roster, you need a diverse commentary team too.
Exactly. And I think what Val adds, as you said, with being local to the Chicago scene, is not only does she know the people, but she has come up, so to speak, with them. So, for example, Val and Nick called the Kylie Ray Lynn match at Friday Night Lights. And Val has known Kylie Ray since Kylie first decided she wanted to be a wrestler and learned how to put a headlock on. And so to know her and see her throughout that journey, you can tell the sincerity in Val's voice when she speaks about her, because she knows the person as well.
Yeah, there's an emotional attachment to it, like a personal side to it as well. Yeah, I love that. And one thing I was going to ask earlier, I was going back to the Stadium Series. At the end of it, like, when Stadium Series is all done, what can we expect as, like, I don't need to give anything away, but what's the big payoff to the Stadium Series? Will there be anything that leads into when you come out of hibernation? Will there be that hook there to bring the people back? And is the winner, well, not the winner, I mean, like, is there going to be someone we can expect to see more of in the future with Warrior Wrestling? Like, what's the hook to bring us back at the end?
Great question. So I think throughout the three shows, you will see a couple of very clear through lines develop with a few different matches and characters that we want to make this really a series, almost a three-part trilogy. So if you come to all three or watch all three, you will see things that are set up in the first night, that are advanced on the second night, and paid off on the third night. So hopefully we see a whole arc there. And then as far as waiting for after hibernation, for us, the key there is introducing new talent. So you will see Brian Cage in the two shows that he's on. He's facing Alex Zane, who is very much on the way up. And he's also facing a gentleman from the UK, Benjamin Carter. And Carter was on our last show against the Rascals, and he's now living in Iowa. He's trained at the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy. We believe he is going to be one of the future staples of professional wrestling. And so because we do not run very often, normally we don't run monthly, normally it's 4 shows a year, for us to say Brian Cage, our signature star from the very beginning, is going to have his match at the last night of the Stadium Series versus Benjamin Carter, that is us telling you this kid has a future. and you're going to see a lot more of this kid going forward. So I would say the hook to come out of hibernation for the spring is the way that we are going to showcase some incredible new talent throughout this series.
Well, as a British podcaster, I think it's amazing that you've got Benjamin Carter and you've got a lot of stock in him, because we're actually speaking to Benjamin on Sunday. So I'll be definitely mentioning Warrior Wrestling when we speak to him. And he's somebody that I only found out about recently. It was when I was watching one of the GCW shows last month. I saw Benjamin Carter and I was like, oh, he's got the Union flag on his attire. So I gave him a quick, found out on Twitter. And I was like, right, okay, I'll be watching this guy. And he's one of these people who now I've been watching. I'm like, how did I not know he existed before? He's so good.
Mm-hmm.
And I can...
He moves. I don't know if you follow hockey at all, but he moves like Patrick Kane. So obviously in Chicago, we're Chicago Blackhawks fans. Oh yeah, we talked hockey last time because you're a Canucks fan, I remember.
Yeah, I know.
Which is an issue. But Carter moves like Patrick Kane in that it looks like he's simply moving 3 speeds faster than everybody else on the ice. Yeah. Carter is that smooth. He can move in such a way that, honestly, he reminds me of another Englishman. He reminds me of Will Ospreay in the sense that Ospreay isn't great because Ospreay would fly and do crazy things. Ospreay is great because of his motion. His motion is somehow crisper, cleaner, quicker than everybody else's. And I feel like Ben Carter has the ability to be the same way.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, when it comes to Will Ospreay, you can sometimes, somebody can be a great high flyer, but you have to get past that hurdle of not making it look like a dance, like everything's, like you're waiting for the next move to happen. You can see what's going to happen. Will Ospreay's always had that ability to make it unpredictable still, make it clean, flawless. And I think another example is another British guy, actually, in Pac. Pac is, to me, one of the greatest high flyers of all time because his offense looks devastating and it's so fast and he very rarely makes a mistake. And like you said, Benjamin Carter, when I was watching his matches, I was like, yeah, he reminded me a bit of Pac in the way that he moved around the ring. There was no wasted motion. Everything he did made sense. He wasn't just doing a flip for the sake of it. It had a reason. And I think if you're putting him against someone like Brian Cage, who has a size advantage, obviously, you've got someone like Benjamin Carter who can neutralize that with his speed and agility.
Exactly. And it's interesting. So we obviously have a great relationship with Brian Cage, and we talk to him about every match before it comes together, who we'd like to face, because Brian's goal is always to steal the show. Every show that he's on, Brian wants to steal the show. And whether that be in a big man match or whether that be in a high flying match or a lucha match. And we brought up the idea of Benjamin Carter not even a week ago. And Brian said he just filmed a match for Dark, Carter did. And he said he impressed the hell out of me. And he said, yes, I want that kid. And so for Cage, who's been around for so long and worked so many different styles, not only do we see something in him, Cage does as well. Yeah. And so I really think, as long as he stays healthy and he keeps a good head on his shoulders, he is on his way to being a top tier guy.
High praise coming from a talent like Brian Cage as well. When Brian Cage requests a match with you, you're doing something right. And like I said, I think he's one of these people over the next year or two, we're going to see Benjamin Carter making big waves in professional wrestling. He's got my attention, and I feel bad that I haven't watched him before this. I mean, I know he's been training in Iowa, like you said, with Black and Brave, but he seems like a guy I should have had my eye on before this. But with Stadium Series coming up soon, it'd be great to know, what are the dates for the shows? Let people know when we can see it, because now I know it's definitely on Fight. I'll be watching it. So let people know, where can they buy tickets if they're attending, and where can we see it on what days?
Absolutely. So if you're in the Chicago area or willing to make a drive, WarriorWrestling.net is the website, so you can buy all the tickets there, whether you're doing the full Stadium Series pass or just a bleacher seat to one show. You can get everything at WarriorWrestling.net. Remember, too, we've got that VIP Fan Fest, so if you want to meet all of these wrestlers, including everyone from Brian Cage and Benjamin Carter, as we talked about, to Lance Archer, to the Rascals, to Alex Shelley, that's the VIP Fan Fest. It's $75, which is a steal, because a lot of these guys, their autograph goes for $50, $75 for one guy at a convention.
Yeah.
And so that's all WarriorWrestling.net. If you're not in the area and would like to watch, it's live on Fight TV. And then a few weeks after each show, it will go up archived on the High Spots Wrestling Network. So we want to see, just like Friday Night Lights, hopefully we get fans from all across the world who are deciding to spend their Saturday night, or in your case, Sunday morning, with us and enjoy some incredible wrestling from some talents from all of the great promotions across the globe.
Well, I can say right now, we'll be watching it live all 3 nights. And if it is on Fight TV, which it is, we'll be covering it live. So we usually like to stay up for these shows. We'll live tweet and get some interaction going. We want to know what people are thinking when they're watching it and get some discussion going. So make sure to check out Ringsiders Wrestling on YouTube for the live coverage. We'll be talking through. We did it last week for this weekend for AEW All Out. We stayed up until 6 o'clock in the morning.
Nice.
So we're used to staying up for it. So make sure to join us for that. Steve, it's been a pleasure speaking with yourself again. Would you like to get your social plugs out there for Warrior Wrestling too?
Sure. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Warrior Wrestling, no vowels in wrestling. So WRSTLNG. We're on Facebook as well. So like us on Facebook, follow us on the other social media platforms. And again, if you're sitting on the fence and you're not sure, take the plunge. Join us for night 1 of the Stadium Series this coming Saturday, the 12th of September. We promise you it's going to be an incredible show featuring, and we haven't even talked about this, the return to wrestling of our women's champion, who will be defending the belt against Kylie Ray in the main event. So it's going to be an incredible night, and we can't wait to see everybody there.
Perfect. I'm so glad you mentioned that at the end. That was one thing I wanted to mention. Kylie Ray is one of my favorite wrestlers in the world, male or female. She's just a brilliant wrestler. Absolutely buy the show just for Kylie Ray. She'll make you smile. That's what she does. Whenever I watch Kylie Ray, I have a huge smile on my face. She's just such a nice person. All of the links which Steve's just mentioned, you can find in the description below. And Steve, it's been a pleasure speaking to yourself, and I'll hopefully get the chance to speak to you after the Stadium Series. We can do a little retrospective and discuss all the happenings.
Done and done. You let me know when, and I'll be right back.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.